Hello everyone, this is my second part of my series where I talk about Capital by Karl Marx. If you haven't watched the first one, I recommend that you do. It's not like you will be completely lost, but it certainly will help. You might notice that the audio is a bit better than my last video. This is because I actually bought a dedicated microphone. Before I was just using my phone to record. But now that I'm noticing, the audio doesn't really sound that much better than it did with my phone. At least not what you would expect from a $130 microphone. What do you guys think? Anyway, doesn't really matter, as long as you guys can hear me. Now, let's begin. Part 2. The Forms of Circulation. So we talked about the act of exchange. Possessors of commodities must enter the market to exchange what is theirs. In the market, commodities will be traded more or less according to the amount of labor that it contains. On average, equivalents will be traded. If a guy enters a market with 1 loaf of bread, he will certainly be unable to trade this for a video game, because it takes 20 loaves of bread to equal the amount of labor in one video game. There are 2 forms that this act of exchange presents itself. The first is a direct form of the circulation of commodities, which we describe in the form CMC. So, commodity, money, commodity. What this looks like is that a person starts off with a commodity. Let's say that a producer of 20 loaves of bread enters the market wanting to sell it. He wants to directly exchange it with others that possess the commodity money, and so we'll say that he is able to exchange it for $60. We have described the first part of the form CMC, the CM part. He sold the commodity for money. Now he doesn't possess his original commodity, but he possesses $60. And now let's say that with his $60 he purchases or exchanges for a video game. This is the second part of CMC, the MC part, money for commodity. So he starts off with a commodity, sells it to obtain $60, and with those $60 makes a purchase to obtain the video game, so CMC. The starting point and the end point of this form is commodity. He used to possess 20 loaves of bread, and now he has a video game. Our imaginary person's intention from the very start was to obtain the video game. At first he trades his commodity for $60, but this is just the means to an end. He doesn't want to be left with $60. He wants the commodity video game, so he is interested in the use value of the video game. His original 20 loaves of bread did not really have a use value for him. We could say that he was left with extra loaves of bread that he did not need. So by using the exchange value of those 20 loaves of bread in order to obtain $60, he can obtain a commodity that actually has a use value, a utility for him. He goes home to play the video game. The same can be said from the other perspective. The original possessor of the video game does not want or need it. The fact that it is a non-use value for him, but it might be for others, is what enables him to exchange the video game for $60. And with those $60, he might exchange it for a commodity that will actually have use value for him. Let's say 10 gallons of milk. Turns out that there is another form, which we will just call now the capitalist form of circulation. We describe it as such, MCM, or money, commodity, money. It's pretty much the same as the first one described, but instead the starting point and the end point is money. What this is that a possessor of money starts out and purchases a commodity, and then he sells this commodity for money again. So he starts with money and then ends up with money. This sounds pretty redundant, right? In our previous form we studied, CMC, it is true that a person starts off with a commodity and through the exchange is left with also a commodity in the end. But in CMC this makes sense because he starts with a commodity that he doesn't really want or doesn't need, a non-use value, and he is left with a commodity that he actually wants, that has a use value. But in this capitalist form, MCM, what does our person gain from starting with money and finishing with money? It turns out that what is actually happening is that in the end, he is left with more money. So really, it is best to describe the form as such, MCM apostrophe. So he starts with money, trades for commodity, and sells it for more than the money he started with. His initial money M is increased, capitalized, you could say, into M apostrophe. So he is not just buying to sell, but strictly buying to sell higher. In the end, he is left with his original amount, but with a surplus added. So we can describe M apostrophe equaling M, his original amount, plus this M delta being this additional money that is added somehow, the surplus. In our example, M apostrophe is the final increased capitalized of $80, and this is equal to the original amount, $60, plus the surplus of $20. So from the very beginning, the person starting out is only interested in the exchange value. He only wants money. He does not care in the slightest about the actual commodity. That was only a means to an end, so that he is able to sell it for more. But hold on one second, did we not say that commodities are traded always at their values, at the amount of labor time necessary to produce? How can you purchase a commodity, then sell it for more than what you purchased for? Where is this surplus coming from? Of course, in some cases you can trick some idiot into paying more than what a commodity is actually worth, but this certainly cannot happen consistently. To understand how this surplus is created, we must step out of this circulation of commodities and see what occurs outside of it. We have said that labor is ultimately what gives value to things, so we may think that by purchasing commodities, applying some labor on it, you can increase its value, obtain a surplus, and achieve the capitalist form MCM'. For example, if you buy the materials in order to make a shoe, soles, leather, strings, and stuff, and then with labor you actually create the shoe, certainly you'd be able to sell it for more than what the materials cost initially, because your labor adds an extra value. The finished shoe will be worth more than the leather and the other materials. This is all true, but this individual labor is not actually creating a surplus. You are selling the shoe for raw materials plus the labor that you put in. You are not springing up an entirely new value that is greater than the money plus the labor that you invested. In other words, you would never be able to enrich yourself. To obtain a surplus and enrich yourself, you must conjure a value in the commodity that is somehow superior to the labor or money that you invested. But for this to happen, you would somehow need to obtain labor for free. But for this to happen, there would need to be a commodity that you can buy that has the certain quality, has a certain use value, that is the source and creator of value, strictly able to create a value greater than what it's actually worth, than what it actually costs. Turns out that there is such a commodity. It is labor power. In other words, the wage labor. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you left it a like and subscribe to my channel. Next video will be on how surplus is created exactly, so be looking out for that. Goodbye.